Welcome to my first podcast. Today we are tackling a difficult and deeply important question about India's federal structure. Why do the leaders in New Delhi often appear to treat political leadership and local institutions of Manipur with a pronounced lack of respect, particularly when dealing with long-standing governance challenges and periods of instability? This isn't just about political grandstanding. It is about the fundamental relationship between the union government and one of its critical border states. To understand this perception, we have to look past the headlines and examine three core areas: the political mathematics of the Northeast, the pervasive habit of bypassing state authority, and the deep historical scars of securitization. Manipur is often referred to as a gateway to Southeast Asia, a crucial strategic location, yet politically it is structurally marginalized. This marginalization begins with simple political arithmetic. First, the electoral insignificance. In the grand scheme of Indian democracy, Manipur sends only two representatives to the Lok Sabha, the lower house of parliament. When central leadership calculates the political priorities, the two votes from Manipur are simply dwarfed by the combined 120 plus seats from politically powerful Hindi belt states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. This low electoral weight often translates directly into low political urgency. The perception, therefore, is that Manipur's concern and its leader are not worth the same political capital as those of a larger, more electorally consequential states. Second, the tyranny of geography. Manipur is geographically and culturally distant from the power center in Delhi. For decades, the northeastern states have struggled with the perception of being the periphery or the other India. This geographical distance often creates a profound knowledge and empathy deficit among policymakers. When long-standing issues require attention, the response often feels remote, bureaucratic, and detached from local life reality. Local leaders who understand the intricate ethnic and historical fault lines find their expertise undervalued in favor of top-down solutions dictated by the bureaucrat who may have no direct experience in the region. The perception of this respect stems from a chronic tendency by the center to override or ignore the state's elected authority when dealing with sensitive issues. The governance by silence. When serious state level problems or governance challenges persist, central leadership often maintain a striking non-engagement. This silence is viewed by many in Manipur across community not as a prudence but as a profound indifference. The message sent is that the state political issues are not a matter of national priority requiring immediate top-level political attention. When central leaders do engage, it is often perceived as a brief or reactive, giving the impression that the suffering of the state is not a driving force. The partition by blind spot. Regardless of which party is in power, the central government often stands firm behind its political allies in the state. In the region grappling with complex political and ethnic dynamics, many local leaders and civil society groups feel the central government prioritizes maintaining its political control, often called the double engine sarkar, over effective, neutral, and stable governance. The corrosion of local agency. The failure of the central government to respect local leaders is often mirrored by a perceived failure of state leaders themselves. Critics frequently point to a leadership defined by deep-seated self-interest and a profound lack of political will to transcend ethnic and political division for the common good. When a state's political class is viewed as unqualified or weak and prioritizes personal or factional gain over genuine governance, it provides the central government with a convenient justification to intervene and take charge. This creates a vicious cycle of dependency. Local politicians, aware they are operating at the mercy of the center, engage in begging for leadership, constantly seeking validation and political shelter from Delhi. They fear being politically outcast, losing their position, their party ticket, or facing investigation, more than they fear failing the electorate. This transactional subservience further strips the local administration of its autonomy and make it an easy, controllable extension of central policy apparatus, rather than a respected independent pillar of the federation. And centralization policy imposition. A persistent issue is the imposition of centrally drafted policies or committees without adequate local consultation or sensitivity to the political environment. Initiative often fail because Delhi assumes it understands the local dynamic better than the elected state government or local stakeholders, leading to measures that they are rejected outright by the communities they are meant to help. This top-down approach suggests a fundamental disregard for the trust deficit required to achieve local consensus and effective governance. The disrespect shown to local political structure is not new. It is deeply rooted in how Delhi has historically governed the Northeast, primarily through a security lens. The Apaspa legacy. For decades, Manipur, like much of the Northeast, has lived under the shadow of Armed Forces Special Power Act (Apaspa). This act grants sweeping power to security forces, essentially treating complex political and identity-based conflict as mere law and order issue to manage by military force. This militarization approach fundamentally disrespects the local political leaders and civil society. It says your complex issues are too dangerous for you to solve politically. We, the center, must solve them through security deployment. This framework of internal colonialism, where local resources, identity, and political autonomy are managed from a distance, often by a non-local administrative and security head, has fueled insurgency and mistrust for generations. Furthermore, by constant framing local unrest as a matter of external threat, the central government shifts the blame away from structural and governance failure and the historical demand of local leaders for greater autonomy and recognition. This narrative, while potentially containing elements of truth, allows the center to bypass meaningful political dialogue with the state's elected representative or civil societies. The perceived lack of respect for Manipur's leaders is a consequence of deep systemic failure. It's product of political math that deem the state electorally insignificant, a history of treating the region through a security-first approach, and the governance strategy that prioritizes political loyalty over effective non-partisan intervention. We must also acknowledge the role of a local leadership, often driven by self-preservation, which willingly sacrifices autonomy for political survival, thereby inviting centralized control. For the two federal partnership to mean something in the Northeast, the central government must move beyond mere containment. It must begin by treating Manipur leaders, regardless of their community affiliation, not as a subordinate to be managed, but as equal stakeholders whose knowledge, autonomy, and legitimacy are essential for stable state governance. Thank you for watching my podcast. I'll see you in the next video.